In the first two games of the ALCS, the Astros outhit the Rays 19 to 10. They struck out 26 Rays batters, and Astros starters allowed just 3 earned runs in 13 innings pitched. Yet it's the Rays who are out to the 2-0 series lead thanks to starters grinding out strong outings, a bullpen that continues to impress, timely hits, excellent defense, and the long ball. In Game 1, Tampa Bay on Sunday evening with the 2-1 victory as Randy Arozarena homered yet again. Mike Zunino drove in the go-ahead run with a fifth-inning RBI single, and the Rays bullpen dominated yet again as they won Game 1 2-1 on Sunday. And so let's break down Game 1 a little bit here first. Blake Snell got off to a bit of a rocky start for the Rays. He gave up a solo home run to Jose Altuve in what turned out to be a 29 pitch first inning. But Snell gutted out 5 innings even without his best stuff, throwing 105 pitches and allowing just that one single run. With 3 of the Rays' top relievers throwing multiple innings just 2 days before on Friday in Game 5 of the ALDS, Kevin Cash, he couldn't turn to his A group of relievers necessarily right away after Blake Snell's exit. So he had to turn to the B group, if you will, of John Curtis, Ryan Thompson, and Aaron Loup, and then one of their top relievers, Diego Castillo, and the 4 of them combined to shut out an Astros offense that, of course, as we've talked about, has been on fire the rest of that game, those 4 allowing just 3 hits in 4 innings, no runs. Castillo in particular, he came on and got the final outs. He's been outstanding. He was outstanding in this game. He came on with 1 out and the bases loaded in the 8th inning of that game for the Astros and induced a ground ball double play on the very first pitch he threw. So that was obviously crucial. He then tossed a scoreless 9th inning to pick up the save here in Game 1. Framber Valdez got the call for the Astros. He's been their best starting pitcher this postseason, and he certainly impressed in this game as well. He was very good, just not quite good enough that he didn't get enough run support. Rosarena homered off of him in the 4th inning for his 4th home run of the postseason, as he became the 5th rookie ever with 4+ homers in a postseason. And then Mike Zunino, the Rays catcher, who hit just 147 this season. He's never been a high average hitter. And Zunino, who had just 1 RBI single in all of the regular season, he had that go-ahead RBI single in the 5th, as mentioned. Valdez's final line, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 8 strikeouts, and 4 walks. So obviously the 4 walks, that's not ideal, but he really did have some incredible stuff, as evidenced by those 8 strikeouts. But like I said, just not enough run support. As the Rays pitchers started by Snell, and then their bullpen held the Astros to just that 1 run. 3 Houston relievers came on and kept the Rays off the board the rest of the way after Valdez's exit, but that would not end up mattering. Of course, with the Astros unable to score again, they stranded 10 runners on base in Game 1. And Game 1 was a really exciting, intense game, a fun game. It was, of course, a very close game, with the Astros threatening multiple times down the stretch. The Rays pitching, though, the battle of the Rays pitching versus the Astros surging offense, the Rays pitching took Game 1 honors on Sunday. So that's the basics of Game 1 of the ALCS. And then we go into Game 2 yesterday. And it was Tampa Bay outfielder Manuel Margot who was the hero in Game 2, as he hit a 3-run home run after a crucial Astros error, and then made a spectacular catch in right field as the Rays defeated the Houston Astros 4-2 yesterday to jump out to that 2-0 series lead. Now, with the runner on first base and 2 outs in the bottom of the first inning, Jose Altuve, the Astros' second baseman, made a throwing error on a pretty easy ground ball that first baseman Yuli Gurriel also should have been able to handle. It was really a pretty sloppy play all the way around. Altuve was not a long throw. It was a pretty easy throw, and he just threw it into the dirt. And meanwhile, Gurriel didn't seem to be he didn't seem to be putting his full effort into it necessarily. I mean, it was one of those easy ground balls where if you're the first baseman, you kind of just stand there, you catch it. It's an easy throw from Altuve, but Altuve bounces it. Gurriel wasn't really ready to react to that at all, and it's charged on an error to Altuve, which was deserved for him, but also a mistake there by Gurriel. He really should have been able to dig that out. Sloppy play by both of them, and then the Rays would make them pay right away as Manuel Margot homered. He was next up. He homered. He hit the 3-run shot to put the Rays up 3-0 early. And as it turns out, that would be enough in terms of runs scored by the Rays to win this game. But it wasn't it for the run scoring in this game. After this inning, though, Lance McCullers got the start for the Astros in Game 2. He really started dealing in what was a pretty dominant outing for him as he held Tampa Bay to just one hit after that up until the 7th inning when catcher Mike Zunino hit a mammoth 454-foot home run. He absolutely crushed it to center field, and McCullers finished with 11 strikeouts, no walks, and just that single, just one earned run from the home run. From the Zunino home run because the Margot home run, that was all unearned because they would have gotten out of it if not for that Altuve error. And those 4 runs would be all the Rays would need. Really, even just the 3 runs would be all they need, thanks to their ability to pitch out of jams and make big defensive plays. Charlie Morton got the start for the Rays, the veteran, in Game 2, and he pushed through 5 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts and 1 walk on 96 pitches. And then Peter Fairbanks came in for the Rays. He gave up 1 earned run on a Carlos Correa homer. That was his 5th home run of the postseason. Aaron Loop and Ryan Thompson both held the Astros scoreless, and then Nick Anderson came on in the 9th for the Rays. And that's when things got interesting again, as Houston loaded the bases with no outs. And then George Springer hit a rocket up the middle on a hop, but second baseman Brandon Lau was positioned perfectly there, and he was able to start a double play. The run did score, and that made it 4-2. And then Anderson proceeded to walk Altuve and Michael Brantley on 4 pitches each. Certainly not a good situation there, and that loaded the bases again with the Astros down just 2 runs. So that was the tying run at second base, the go-ahead run at first base, but after those 2 walks, Anderson was able to get a fly out to end it. The Rays winning yesterday 4-2, and just like that, it's a 2-0 series lead for the Tampa Bay Rays over the Astros in the ALCS. So that's a breakdown of basically what happened the last few days in that series. Now I've got 3 big takeaways as far as, why it is the Rays have this 2-0 series lead and what we make of it. The first one is very simple. Defense. The Rays have shown great defense in this series. The Astros have not, and that has mattered in games that have been very close, generally speaking. The Rays got incredible plays from their infield. Shortstop Willy Adames making some very athletic plays. Third baseman Joey Wendell has had multiple diving stops to start outs on ground balls. First baseman Ji-Man Choi has practically spent half his time on the field, on the ground, and doing the splits to bring in throws from his infielders to make picks on balls out of the dirt. He's been outstanding on plenty of athletic plays from Ji-Man Choi at first base. And then, of course, there was Margot, who, as I mentioned, he made an incredible catch. It was the 2nd inning of yesterday's game with 2 on and 2 outs for the Astros. George Springer hitting one down the right field line. Margot traveling 102 feet to make the catch. He leaped. He fell over the padded railing atop of a wall and then fell to land in a walkway. It was really a sensational catch. Really should just check it out yourself online. It was an outstanding play, one of the best defensive plays I have seen in an MLB postseason game. He just went for it. I mean, he leaped, he went over the railing. Fortunately, he was okay because that could have been very serious. There's also, I should mention, from the Rays and their defense, some great defensive positioning in these first couple of games of this series. Particularly a few plays where second baseman Brandon Lau was in the ideal spot and not his normal spot where you'd expect the second baseman to be. So whether he was positioned up the middle or even on the third base side of the second base bag, there were a few plays where some defensive positioning really paid off because there have been some hard hit balls from this Astros team, from guys like Correa, from George Springer, but in several instances, they may have been big hits for the Astros, driven in runs, if not for the Rays' defensive positioning. So they absolutely should get a good deal of credit on that. As for the Astros defense, like I said, it let them down, particularly in game two. And we know this is a Rays team that can capitalize on that. Altuve had not made a single throwing error in the entire regular season. And then he made that costly one in the first inning, and then he did basically the exact same thing in the third inning, throwing an easy grounder into the dirt that Gurriel couldn't dig out. Fortunately for the Astros, in that scenario, it didn't come back to hurt them like before, but it didn't end up affecting that play didn't end up affecting the game. But Altuve's error in the first certainly did. And so defense, that's takeaway number one. The Rays have shown great defense, and it's mattered. It's helped potentially avoid some big Astros hits and avoid some big Astros rallies. And meanwhile, the Astros, it's not like they've been sloppy all over the place. They've been a very good a very good defensive team this season. But in a game like this, and when you're at this point, when you've got two great teams, when you're in the ALCS, it's a matter of a couple of plays, whether they be, a couple of pitches, a couple of swings, a couple of defensive plays can make all the difference. Second takeaway here I have is capitalizing offensively. Simply put, the Rays have done it, the Astros have not in the first two games of the series. And like I said a little bit ago here, the Astros have actually out-hit the Rays 19-10 in these two games. Houston's starting pitchers have been good, and the Astros bullpen has not given up a single earned run, though they've only pitched 3 innings. So it's really been all about timely hitting and the home run, the long ball. The Astros left 18 runners on base in game 1, and they left 20 on base yesterday. That is a huge, a huge number. The Rays, meanwhile, they had just 6 hits in game 1 and just 4 hits in game 2, but they made them count. In game 1, they scored with the Randy Arozarena homer, and then their second run was scored because there was a walk, and then a ground out advanced that runner to second, and then a ground out advanced that runner to third, and then an RBI single by Mike Zunino. So it's not exactly as if they've been mashing and having all these huge rallies and 5 hits in a row and scoring all these runs. They've just been manufacturing runs and then also hitting the home runs as well. They've been getting the timely hits. They've been doing what it takes when they're in those situations to score runs. In Game 2, it was, of course, Margot capitalizing on that Altuve error and then a home run from Zunino. So, look, they're coming up with the timely hits when it matters the most, and the Astros are not. And some of that, of course, is, like I said, the reason the Astros have not is due to factors like, the Rays pitchers getting out of it and great defense, but it's kind of as simple as that as well. Tampa Bay has scored 79% of their runs via the home run this season, this postseason, I should say. 79% of their runs via the home run this postseason, and according to ESPN Stats and Info, that is the highest rate by a team with at least 5 games played in a single postseason. So you're seeing how much the home run is playing a role in the Rays scoring. And the Rays, not a team that going into this postseason, sure, they had hit their fair share of home runs, but that's never been sort of the Rays style that we all associate with them. We don't think, oh boy, the Rays, they're just hitting home runs left and right. I mean, that's what we think of the Yankees and these other teams that are these great offenses. The Rays, pardon me, the Braves, but we don't think of the Rays like that. But the home runs have mattered for them this postseason. There hasn't necessarily been one guy who's been delivering them. It's been Randy Arozarena, I should say, definitely the most. But from Mike Zunino to Manuel Margot to Kevin Kiermaier to several other players who've come up big, from Mike Brosseau and several others who've come up big with the home run for the Rays. A final takeaway here is I've alluded to it here. We've talked about it a bit. The Rays pitchers just getting it done, still getting it done. Now, as evidenced by the Astros, they had 9 hits in Game 1. They had 10 hits yesterday. Tampa Bay's pitchers haven't been completely lights out. They have not completely limited the Astros. They haven't, made the Astros look foolish. The Astros have had some pretty hard hit balls, but at the end of the day, you look up at the scoreboard and you see that the Rays pitchers allowed just 3 runs in 2 games to the Astros to begin this series. So the Rays pitchers are finding a way to get it done nonetheless. Neither Blake Snell in Game 1 nor Charlie Morton yesterday had their absolute best stuff. That was clear. Snell gave up 6 hits, 2 walks. Morton gave up 5 hits. Neither of them was just completely dominating, but they gave up just 1 earned run between them, and that was from Blake Snell in Game 1. Kevin Cash hasn't been able to keep going back to his top 2 or 3 relievers for multiple innings a game after the starter exits. So other relievers, as we talked about, are being counted on for big innings against a Houston lineup that's been surging this postseason. We've talked about it. And they've largely kept them at bay. Rays relievers have posted a 2.25 ERA in the first 2 games. Of course, very small sample size, but that's what we're working with right now. And when the Astros have gotten runners on, Rays pitchers have gotten out of it. Whether they've induced weak contact or gotten the strikeout, or the Astros have squared up the ball pretty well, but hit it right at a well-positioned infielder. No matter how it happened, the Rays pitchers have navigated out of trouble and avoided a big innings from Houston in this series in the first 2 games. And they're still getting it done. It hasn't been easy per se, and they haven't been able to rely on the same couple of guys. But the Rays pitchers are still getting it done against this Astros offense in the first 2 games of this series. And those 3 things combined, Rays pitchers finding a way, the Rays capitalizing offensively when the Astros haven't, and the Rays playing great defense when the Astros haven't. Those are 3 of the big keys to why the Rays are out to a 2-0 series lead, despite many of the major statistics tilting in the Astros' favor. It's pretty much can be broken down, I think, into those couple of key areas. So finally, my prediction for the ALCS. Of course, I didn't get a chance to discuss this on the broadcast here before this series started, because of course the Rays didn't defeat the Yankees until late last week, so we didn't know that matchup until Friday night. On the Bonfire podcast on Saturday, I know I predicted the Rays to win this series. I'm not sure if I put a game number on it, whether it would be, I think, maybe 6 games. I'm clearly sticking with the Rays here as my prediction for this series. So really the only question in my mind, I should say, is whether I'm predicting the Rays to win in 5 games or 6, because at this point I'm doubtful that this series is going to go to 7 games, and I'm very doubtful that the Astros are going to come back to win it. I think I'm going to predict Rays in 6. I don't know how much it even matters as far as how many games it goes. I'm still going to go with Rays in 6 because this is an Astros team that's not going to quit. This is a team that has plenty of postseason experience. Several of these players have a great deal of postseason experience, of course, and they've been down, and that experience includes being down in postseason series. So I'm certainly not. I don't think this is gonna. I highly doubt that this is gonna be a series sweep or anything like that. But the Rays have clearly shown, though, that they are the deeper, more complete team, and now they've got a big edge with a 2-0 series lead. Statistically speaking, teams that have won the first two games of any best of seven postseason series have gone on to win that series 85% of the time. But again, like I said, none of these games have been blowouts. The Rays have not been dominating. They've both been high intensity games with a couple key moments being the difference. It's been great games to watch. It really has. But the Rays have shown that they're the better team. And I think it's just a matter of, how long does this series go? How many games are the Astros able to take? But I have Rays winning this. I'm going to say Rays in 6.